What's up, y'all? Today I want to show you how to get the best, most realistic sounding guitar out of using a guitar sampler plugin. So this is what we're going to end up with. So first I want to talk about how to take your guitar from what I would say is a beginner to intermediate to expert or highest level of what you can get out of a guitar sampler. So first here we have two different guitar patches, a lead and a rhythm patch. And I'm using the Darkstar acoustic with no reverb, the flex patch from FL Studio. No changes to this except for delay and reverb are off. And then I use the Pignose half gain 1 with a little bit of the release cut down a little bit and no delay or reverb again, so I can do that with post effects myself. And I turned the hold down on it. So the most basic version of this, I would say, is you have your chords and you have a lead accent note, and that's going to sound like this. And it almost just sounds like a, very mechanical, not it's definitely programmed. You can hear that a guitarist isn't actually playing this. It's almost like tropical house sounding. So we just have our chords playing, and then our lead note is accenting those chords by playing the highest note of each of those chords. So a better version of this, I would say, is going to sound like this. And so the two main differences here is I've taken my rhythm guitar and actually given it some rhythm. I've chopped my chords into this rhythmic pattern here that we have playing. Almost like our rhythm guitarist is trying to set the rhythm for the beat. The drums will come in and accent that rhythm. And then we have our lead guitarist is playing, instead of just one note, there's some other notes mixed in, but again, it's very predictable. It's very much programmed sounding. They're playing a couple more notes. It kind of accents the rhythm that we have going with the rhythm guitar. But again, like with the chords that I have here, I think it's an inversion of a D major 7th chord. So the major third of this is what's playing on our lead guitar here. And that, that's, again, it kind of feels a little bit more like, instead of two guitarists with their own unique voice, you have one person who isn't a master of playing guitar. So they're just saying, okay, well, I have my lead is accenting my chords, which are playing a little bit of rhythm now. So not the most advanced thing. It's very predictable. We have top note, a leading note here, top note, a lead, with two plucks there. Very 1 1 2 3 1 1 2 3 1 1 2 3. Predictable. Nothing changes through this. So now let's move to what I think is the best version of this, and I'll explain how to get this in a second, but I just want to talk about what it is. And as you can hear, that's what we started out with, so I'm not going to play it all through again. We'll get to that in a minute. But we've done two things here. And the first is I introduced some strums to my rhythm guitar. And that's because when you're strumming a guitar, you're going to go from one string to another. But the time it takes the pick to get through that chord isn't going to be instantaneous, right? You're not going to have your rhythm guitarist play every note of the chord at the same time because they have to take the time to strum through. So we've introduced strums to our rhythm. And then we've also done a lot to the lead here. But I will basically say, there's one main difference that I would say makes this the most unique, and that is, instead of the lead guitarist playing an accent to our chords, now our lead guitarist is playing a counter melody to our chords. It's doing its own thing. It's almost like we have a pretty skilled guitar player, or not, it's not, the guitar doesn't sound that realistic, but you know what I'm saying. It's the strum rhythm person is playing their best version of what they think it is, and they have an idea about what the song that these two people are making together is. And then the lead guitarist is a whole unique person. They're not just inside the rhythm player's mind saying like, okay, well, C sharp is the top note, so I'll stick with that. No, they're just saying like, well, this sounds really good with my rhythm guy, what he's or girl, what they're doing. So I'm going to play, you know, an F and then it bends. And then that's the other main thing that's changed here is instead of a new note every time we have a new note being played, instead of a new strum happening, instead of a new pluck on the string happening, we're bending in between these notes here. And I'll solo that out one more time. So it's a dotted half and then another dotted half and then a half note, which also introduces another like counter rhythm to what we're doing with the rhythm guitar there. So they're also going in and they're bending on those half notes. So they're plucking one note, bending for the length of a half note. And then on this last one, they're playing another note, almost making like a small chord there because there's might be nice harmonics that the lead guitarist thinks sounds good when they keep the F string ringing out, but play another string on top of it. And then we even have a full chord come in here, and they're not releasing the note every time. That's one thing that I think as an EDM producer you can get trapped into, or at least I get trapped into thinking like, well, every note should end before the next note starts, right? You don't want your mix to get muddy by having notes end at different, you know, points overlapping each other. You're going to mess up your headroom there. But in reality, I think before we were doing this with computers, a lot of it is just this feels right. So we have our lead guitarist playing almost some chords here. So let's go in here to our chords and talk about how we can get a more unique sound, take it from level 1 to level 3. So if we were at level 1, all of these would be just one long note, right? It would be one chord, one chord, one chord, one chord. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my slice tool, and you can slice the notes here, but if you hold shift, as you can see there, now I'm getting a consistent slice where it goes straight down the piano roll. So you're going to go in and just slice a rhythm into this that you feel like works really well, and just experiment to get the one that you think works the best. Then next, I'm going to go into my toolkit here. I don't know what, yeah, tools, and strum my chords. The way that this works is you change the strength, and as you can see here, that's moving my highest notes to different positions, and then you have a velocity tool. And the velocity tool is going to be useful along with the strength, but we'll start by doing velocity. And so what I want for this, I have a lead that's in a higher register, right? My lead notes are all higher than the root of my chord. So I want to, first things first, set my velocity so that, let me go ahead and stretch this all the way out, so that as you can see, my lowest note is at the highest velocity and my middle and higher notes are going downwards. And that's kind of a mixing trick more than anything else, because when you're strumming the notes, of course, if you're an actual guitar player, you're going to hit them at different velocities. And another bonus of that is if you're using a good enough sampled guitar, guitar sampler plugin, there's going to be different sample sets that are used for, you know, they'll bring the session musician in and say, hey, we want some hard strums for the most high velocity sections, and then go lower and then go lower and then go lower, to where like the lower velocity input, you're getting a completely different sample set. The higher, you're getting a different sample. So not only the pitch will be the same, but your sample that you're using is going to be different if you're changing the velocity enough. So first thing I'm going to do here, I've changed it to where my lowest velocity is for the highest notes. I'm going to shorten that strength a lot for the next step, but I'm just going to go in here and just kind of get what I think is a good velocity difference between these. I think maybe that leaves them sounding nice and bright while also having a little bit of velocity difference. So we'll go ahead and keep rolling with that. And then the next thing I'm gonna do here is kind of counterintuitive, but I'm gonna set it to whatever my shortest note length is, which it looks like it's gonna be a half beat here, and then Control Q and quantize it, right? So I've gone in here and just undone the strum length that I changed. So I changed that and I'm undoing it. And the reason for that is now I can go in here and do a second strum. And this time I'm going to do a different thing. So I'm not going to mess with my velocity. I am going to mess with my tension. I'm going to do this to taste here. So Actually, first I want to turn on two things, and that's preserve end for this. You don't have to do that, but it works well for me when I preserve the end of them, because there's a little bit of tail off of most samplers where once the notes let go, there is some tail that rings out. And then I'm going to go alternate direction. And what that does is when my rhythm guitar is strumming, it's almost like the guitarist is strumming down the strings and then back up the strings, right? Which is a pretty standard thing. I think for metal, a lot more of the times they're going down, 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 down to get that very similar velocity all the time. But for this, we got a kind of slow emo guitar. We're going down, up for each of these changes. And if I change my start time enough, you can see that we're going from lowest to highest, so down the strings but up the piano roll, and then highest to lowest, opposite direction. So now we're just going to do this to taste here. And so that sounds good to me. And then I'm going to change the tension just the slightest amount. And by preserving the end, that means that the note is always going to stop and not ring out past the next start. Which that sounds fine too, but just for me, it's become kind of a habit to do that. Maybe you don't need to do that. And then lastly, I am going to change my ending times. I'm just going to pull it back a little bit, maybe change the tension. And that's kind of sounding nice and natural. I don't want to spend too much time doing this because you're going to, you can take as much time as you want on that. I spent a good amount, I think, making this. So now we have this, and it's still quite, it doesn't sound as mechanical, but this is very, it's very computer generated, all these velocities sound a little more random, but there's no error in there, right? Like a human player, there's going to be a lot of things that don't come out exactly identical like we have this, where all the links are identical. Even though they're changed, they're all identical, and all the velocities are identical. So let's do some humanizing on these. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to go in again to my tools here and use the randomize function to humanize my levels. Now you can turn on bipolar for this, and what that means is that they will go up. So if I get pretty heavy with this, that means, as you can see, they're going up and down from the start point, right? Either way, right? So that's just moving in one direction, moving in the opposite direction, but the same formula. Or you can do it without bipolar. I think we'll try both here. And I like that. That sounds a little bit more natural to me. And so, I'm not going to go too crazy with this. We'll just pick the first seed, but you can change the seed here, which is just the math formula, I think, that they're using for the humanization here. And so I'll go ahead and accept that. So we've humanized our levels. Now what I want to do is I want to humanize the timing on these strums. And how we're going to do this is I'm just going to hold shift and just select some notes. And what I would recommend is for this first shift, don't select that many. Because these are going to be the most drug notes, right there. They're going to be the most late notes. So we've selected a couple. I'm going to change my snap to grid to none. And then I'm just going to hit hold shift and hit right arrow. So we've drugged those over by 1 unit. Now I'm going to select some more. And since these are slightly, these are the slightly more accurate if we do it a couple times, I'll select more notes, but still not that many. Shift it again. Play it to make sure you're not getting too insane with the dragging, and let's do it just a third time. And these are going to be the notes that are shifted the least, right? Because these will be shifted 1 time. The second set that we did are shifted 2 times, and the first set that we did are shifted 3 times. So I might select the most number of notes for this one because these are quite a bit more accurate. They're barely drug at all. So we'll just kind of go crazy here and get, maybe not that one. I don't know why, but that one doesn't feel like it to me. This one, no, not that one. This one. I don't know what my brain is saying there. Why not those? Probably because it's too many in that selection, but let's just go ahead and drag it and we end up with that, and it doesn't sound too insane. Now we're going to do the opposite, and again, we're going to have some cancellation going on here because I'm going to deselect all of them and just start selecting again. And since I'm doing random notes, we are probably going to be selecting some of the same ones and dragging them and rushing them. So I got a small selection. We'll go forward one. Let's get a couple more. I said forward, but I meant backward there. Go back another note, and then let's make sure we're all right here. Yeah, it doesn't sound too crazy. And we'll get a significant amount more. Now, the only catch with this here, and I think I've already messed this up, is you can't select this very first note or it will stop you from dragging it. You won't be able to shift any of them. And you'll notice that if you've done that, because you'll try and shift it and nothing will happen. So just get a couple more, and as you can see, I'm doing a lot this time again. Hopefully we didn't just cancel out all the first ones that we did, because that can happen too if you select the exact same ones. And now I'm just going to listen through it and see if there's any that I feel like are egregiously moved. And what I've noticed here is I must have selected all of the, I think I drug a couple of these too much. I feel like these are all not quite right, so I'm going to just shift those over a little bit. So now the last thing that I want to humanize here is our hold time. And what do I mean by the hold time is that's when we've set to release the note. So I'm going to kind of humanize my release time. I'm going to right click, and you see that's red on the slice tool now. And just go in here and just do a little bit of manipulation on some of these. You know, don't overthink this too much. I'm just trying to kind of change how long all these notes are being held. Because again, I'm just trying to get this the most realistic that I could possibly have it. And I hear something egregious here. That's this. Yeah, again, maybe it's just... Yeah, that sounds better. And so for the chords, that's going to do it. You know, we've humanized every element that we've can. We've done as much as we can to get some randomization in here. And so that's going to be a good way to get some realistic guitar strums. Now, let me go back into my lead here. First, we'll get rid of that. So we're soloing out our lead guitar, and the main things here, as you can see, I've already humanized my velocities down here, and then I've gone in and took all these notes and made them slides when they're slides, right? And that's pretty self-explanatory. And then I've changed the notes of the lengths of a lot of these slides, right? Made them different lengths. I didn't go in. Oh, I did. I went in and even changed the syncopation of it. Moved a couple of these slide notes around. So a lot of the same principles that we just showed with that other, right? I've done the same exact things where I went in, used the randomize tool to humanize the volumes, the velocities. I probably went in and started with all of these being one length as far as the lengths of the slide notes. And then just went in and chopped them down to varying lengths. As you can see, this one's really small. This one's probably my longest one here. And just did that. And nothing too crazy here. Same principle, but since you've seen it with the strums, I'm not going to go ahead and repeat it. Just do that same thing to your lead guitar pattern, and you get a much more realistic sounding guitar. Then lastly, and I'm going to spend the most minuscule amount of time on this, because there are probably a lot of channels that do guitar effects better than what I'm about to show you, but I'll show the basic effects that I have this running through. My strum here, I am sending into a couple things, and first thing that I have here is a compressor. Just kind of giving some glue to it. I think you may be able to hear it if you have good enough headphones on right now, but there's a ringiness that I'm cutting out with an EQ. And then this red channel in the background is my lead EQ. So I've just gone in and done a cut to stop that lead from being interfered with and give it its own space. Then lastly, just a distortion, a tape distortion to give it a little bit of grunge, make it sound a little more textured. Then for my lead here, we have quite a bit more going on, so I'll go ahead and get rid of all that. And the first thing that I put in here is a transient shaper. And I'm just getting rid of that initial transient a little bit. I have my speed all the way up. Cutting that transient down a little bit. Then I have a flanger. Giving it some more stereo information and a little bit of the classic like surf guitar warble that you might have. Then a soft clipper, just bringing those, bringing the harmonics out a little bit more on it. Then as you can see, quite a bit of compression on this. It's stopping it from being so, it's gluing it together, stopping it from having such wide differences in the note velocities that, you know, I did a lot of humanization, so our note velocities, if I didn't change that, are going to be kind of all over the place. It's going to give you a tough time in the mastering section of your track. Then I have the smallest room reverb on there. And then again, I'm cutting out some ringiness from the highs. And actually, instead of boosting this signal here as well, I'm cutting it. So not the most complicated, but kind of just some guitar mixing tips or mixing tricks that I have on there. And that may be a better mix idea to have going. But maybe not. I think with the vocal, it was interfering with that. So with the effects being shown and everything, y'all, that's going to do it for this one. I hope you picked up something you find useful, can use in your own productions, and I will see y'all in the next one.